Next two debaters.
Michael Rectenwald, and we are so excited. Are you excited right now? You're a little nervous. You got some nerves going?
A little nervous. I'm fired up, but it's a big deal, and I'm looking forward to it.
Now, you and your opponent have an almost 40-year age gap. You going to spank this young man and put him to bed, you think, today?
Well, I was a professor for many years, and so I'm going to be professorial. I don't spank students, and I'm not going to spank him.
What did you do to prep going into this?
About 50 hours of research and reading and, then rehearsing and so forth. So, you got to really get ready. It's, we're talking about a formidable opponent. Despite his age, that doesn't matter. So I wanted to be totally on point.
Right. And do you think tonight we're going to be changing minds at all?
I hope so. I mean, look, this is one of the most important issues of our time, and I think I'll hope to make that clear tonight.
Why do you think it is such an emotional issue?
It's emotional, but it's. I think people have definite views about this based on identity and based on their history, based on, I got to say, in some cases, indoctrination and things like that. So it's a very fraught topic, but it's one that deserves very serious attention.
What do you think is something that people tend to get wrong about you, like maybe a misconception they have?
They might think that I'm a little bit of a hard ass, but I'm actually a pretty soft guy, softy inside.
I haven't seen the hard ass part yet. Am I going to see that on stage tonight?
Probably you're going to see that, yeah.
And how do you feel about your opponent? What would you say, if you could say something great about him, what would it be that you admire about him?
He's a sharp guy, very smart. I put nothing past him. I think he's a formidable opponent, and I take him extremely seriously.
Wonderful. I love that. Are we ready to take this young man in, too? All right. Let's walk right in.
Okay,
Put some pep in your step. Show him how it's done.
Right. Michael is pumped up. He did put pep in his step. Crystal, we'll go back to you.
Do we have the camera coming?
All right. We'll give her just a second. Well, in the meantime, while that's going on, let's talk about what this debate is specifically about. This debate is about foreign influence in American politics, and specifically dark money that flows into the American government from foreign entities and foreign countries. And we all know pretty much where that's going to go. I'll let you guys decide. It's exactly where it goes, but because if you know, you know. Crystal, we'll go back to you.
Hey guys, I'm here with Shabbos Kestenbaum. Shabbos, I tried to bait your opponent to talk some smack, but instead he just said some really beautiful things about you. How do you feel about Michael going into this?
Well, I will return the favor, and I will say that this debate will be a debate on the substantive issues, on the ideas, and not on the personalities. I think one of the problems in American political culture is we're so inculcated in our own partisan bubbles that we don't really interact with the other side, and I'm actually looking forward to debating the professor.
Now, I mentioned this to him as well. There's about a 40-year age gap between the two of you. Have you ever debated with someone in this age?
I don't want to assume how old he is, but I can't imagine I've debated someone of his generation. No, not yet.
What do you think is something people get wrong about you?
Well, because my name, Shabbos Kestenbaum, is straight out of, a Jewish comic book, people just assume that because of my religious identity and the fact that, I wear the funny hat on my head, I'm obliged to support the state of Israel. In fact, Anna Kasparian said that explicitly when we debated on Piers Morgan. My support of Israel comes from my support of the United States. And America first does not mean America alone. So I support our allies, whether it's Israel, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Taiwan. And I will continue to demonstrate that President Trump's foreign policy of peace through strength provides the greatest sense of security and stability to the American people.
It's very clear you're a smart man. What did you do to prep going into something like this?
Well, part of it is lived experience. So unfortunately, I had friends and family members affected by the Hamas attack on October 7th. Unfortunately, having terrorism in the state of Israel and in the Western Hemisphere is not out of the ordinary. So part of it is lived experience. But they also, the other part is, my research. I don't think I've done as many hours as the professor, but certainly this is something that has, consumed my life for many, many years now.
All right, you ready to go walk in and show them your stuff? Let's do it. All right, kill it. Get it going.
Bring him up, we go, gentlemen. Stage. You ready to go? You ready to go? In the words of Mills Lane, let's get it on. All right, Michael, you're first up. 5 minutes, you're on the clock. Opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming and joining in on this most crucial debate on the Israeli lobby's iron grip on America. This Zionist network drains our treasury, entangles us in endless wars, and shields atrocities abroad while eroding our sovereignty and individual rights at home. Tonight I will show that this lobby serves as a foreign ethno-state and betrays America. First, consider the staggering price we've paid for Israel. Since 1948, America has poured over $320 billion of direct aid into Israel, the largest recipient of U.S. aid in history. That includes $3.8 billion annually, but add over $22 billion in emergency military aid since October 23, and you're still only looking at the tip of the iceberg. All this aid is illegal according to U.S. law. Factor in military costs in the region, lost taxes from pro-Israel charitable organizations, a $7.4 billion trade deficit with Israel thanks to a rigged free trade agreement, and billions to bribe Israel's neighbors, and you'll begin to approach the true total. Include indirect costs like the Iraq War, sold by Netanyahu and American Zionist neocons like Wolfowitz and Pearl, and it's an estimated $8 to $10 trillion, or a quarter of our national debt. Even Trump admitted that our Middle East wars aren't for oil. They're for Israel's security, i.e. belligerence. Add to this the black budget that the intelligence agencies spend on Israel, as much as $13.2 billion a year annually estimated, and the number is astronomical. This isn't an alliance, it's foreign capture. How has this happened? 500 to 600 tax-exempt Israel affinity groups skirt foreign agent laws and abuse charity status for political warfare against Americans. In addition to buying Congress, the lobby imposes anti-BDS laws in 38 states, trampling our First Amendment rights. This foreign subversion, prioritizing Israel over America's interests and Americans' individual rights. And what does this lobby defend? Not Western civilization, as my opponent contends, but barbarity. Israel's own leaders reveal the truth. Former Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant declared Palestinians human animals, and Israel denied them food, fuel, and power. Minister of Finance Bezalel Smotrich said starving millions is moral. Others demanded nuking Gaza, erasing it entirely, and that's just some of the kinder things that have been said. This isn't self-defense, it's genocidal intent in action. A genocide corroborated by 183 human rights, humanitarian, and international governance organizations, 49 qualified scholars, including 12 Israeli scholars and 9 non-Israeli Jewish scholars, the International Association of Genocide Scholars, and UN commissions. But we don't need experts to tell us about the genocide. The whole world is a witness. Americans are awakening and rejecting this extortion for genocide. Latest polls show support for Israel's Gaza actions at an historic low. Only 32% approve, with 60% disapproving. This outrage is fueling real change. I launched AZAPAC, America's first and only anti-Zionist PAC. We ran viral ads declaring no more should the U.S. serve as Israel's ATM and munitions depot. We're endorsing and funding fearless candidates who refuse Zionist money and demand an end to foreign aid, especially military aid. AZAPAC channels an enormous groundswell into political power, proving that Americans demand an end to U.S. subservience to Israel. Enough. We must dismantle this foreign influence network, cut entanglements, end tech dependencies, and purge bribed politicians.
And time. All right, Shabbos, your turn, 5 minutes.
Sure. Well, I'm deeply bothered by the fact that there is foreign influence in the United States government, which is why it bothers me that just last week the Department of Education under Section 117 of the Higher Education Act found that Qatar alone was spending $6 billion to American institutions of higher learning. Why exactly is Qatar paying for American colleges? It deeply bothers me that there are so many Chinese communists at Harvard University that the Chinese Communist Party literally calls the Harvard Kennedy School, which is the School of Public Policy and Government, quote, their party school. It deeply bothers me that there's foreign influence campaign by Russia, which has been well documented that they use their consulates, like the one where I live in New York City in Riverdale, to spy and otherwise conduct espionage on American citizens. But let's be honest, none of you in the room and no one in our political culture or media care about any of those things because, as my opponent just demonstrated, the only country they are singularly obsessed with is Israel. You did not mention any other country in a topic that doesn't even mention the word Israel. But nevertheless, let's talk about Israel. Israel is a country that just 3 years after gas chambers and crematoria were able to beat back 7 Arab Islamist armies. Israel is a country of only 9 million, yet has more Nobel Prize winners than both China and India. Israel is a country with full and equal rights granted to both Jews and Arabs, which is why you had just 10 years ago an Arab Supreme Court judge, Salim Gibran, who sentenced a Jewish prime minister, Ehud Olmert, to prison. There is no other country in the Middle East where Jews and Muslims have full and guaranteed equal rights. But before I discuss the virtues of Israel, let me discuss America and foreign policy in the context of the international stage. The Federalist Papers are replete with treaties and examples of the importance of what the Founding Fathers called common defense. Our Founding Fathers recognized that it is the government's most sacrosanct job to provide for the common defense of people, often by establishing foreign alliances, and they support America's foreign policy positions. Understandably, the first war that America as a country ever fought was the Barbary War, a war to stop Islamist piracy off the coast of the Mediterranean. Why? Because President Thomas Jefferson realized that a threat to American foreign policy abroad is a threat to Americans at home. So this bizarre pseudo-intellectual contemporary conspiracy that a nation doesn't need mutually beneficial alliances is as ludicrous as it is historical, which brings me back to Israel. What exactly does the United States gain from our relationship with Israel? It turns out a hell of a lot. Currently, almost every single U.S. SS Abrams tank uses what's called Trophy, an active protection system for military armored vehicles that was designed, developed in Israel, by Israel, given to America. The United States Marine Corps currently uses the most advanced bunker-busting rocket launcher in the world, the shoulder-launched multi-purpose assault weapon. Its original design was the B-300 system, designed in Israel, produced in Israel, paid for by Israel, given to America. The American military allows fighter pilots to target enemy aircraft simply by looking at them. It's known as the Joint Helmet Mounted Cueing System. Its creators, Israel's Elbit system. Given by Israel, designed in Israel, given to the United States. The United States has one of the largest UAV fleets in the world that relies heavily on Israeli designs like Pioneer and Hunter, which were used extensively during the Persian Gulf War. In fact, just last week, Israel announced the completion of the Iron Beam weapon that can quite literally shoot down drones, mortars, and rockets out of the sky for pennies on the dollar. So it looks like Marjorie Taylor Greene was right. The Jews actually do have space lasers. Israel is the only country on planet Earth that purchases American F-35s and then actually makes adaptations and improvements to F-35s. In fact, the Israeli adaptations to American F-35s has then been resold by the Americans to the Saudis. Israel was the first and one of the only countries to fly the F-15, the F-16, and the F-35 in real combat. This real-world experience is sent straight back to U.S. manufacturers, saving, by the Pentagon's own estimates, 15 years of research and development, helping the United States beat Russia and China in global markets. This is a partnership. It is not a charity. As repeatedly stated by the Pentagon, the Department of Homeland Security, the Senate Armed Forces Committee, Israeli weapons that target Hezbollah tunnels in Lebanon are currently being used by the Department of Homeland Security to target drug tunnels used by the cartel on our southern border. Israel's Mossad raided Iranian nuclear archives in Tehran. They had Operation Grim Beeper, which was one of the most targeted precision attacks in recorded history. When America needs human intelligence in the Middle East, there is only one country it goes to, and guess what? The country is called Israel. Israel is the only Western country that is currently fighting Islamists. It killed Ibrahim Akil, the Hezbollah leader who was in charge of the 1983 Marine barrack bombing that killed 241 Americans. So if your response to Israel eliminating terrorists is anything but thank
Shabbos,
you are not America first.
Come on now, come on. So remember, you can have open debate, but when we're getting to those points, you gotta cut it off. All right. We have 25 minutes open debate. We're gonna start the timer. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Well, I mean, let me just say that we want to talk about Israeli tech, and let's get some facts on the table, shall we? 75 to 80% of all the capital for Israeli startups comes from the United States. That's the first thing. Most of the components of all Israeli tech comes from the United States as well, including NVIDIA for chips and Intel for chips, as well as Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and Google for web services. And they use these tech for the militants that we have witnessed over the past two plus years.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned NVIDIA, because NVIDIA just announced that they're going to open their own plant in Israel because they recognize the fruitfulness of having an Israeli-American partnership. And as it pertains to American foreign aid, it's true that America gives roughly $3.6 billion to Israel on an annual basis. What you fail to mention is 90% of the foreign aid given to Israel must be spent on American military equipment. So Israel has to buy U.S. missile defenses, U.S. military technology, and U.S. fighter jets. Now, you can say that there shouldn't be foreign aid, and I've actually support the idea that Israel should not receive foreign aid. But the reality is, America, one of the reasons that they give foreign aid to Israel is because Israel has been so military and technologically advanced that America actually wants Israel to be reliant on American foreign weapons as opposed to shopping the market. So again, if you don't want foreign aid, then I'm okay with that, but it's bizarre that you don't mention, for example, that Somalia received $1.2 billion in foreign aid last year. You don't mention that Egypt received $3.2 billion in foreign aid last year. You don't mention Nigeria, which is currently conducting a genocide against Christians nations received close to $1 billion in foreign aid either. So if we want to talk about foreign aid, let's talk about foreign aid. Let's not obsess over one country, which brings me to the other point. As I said earlier, when Israel has an investment with the United States, it's not giving money if the money then has to be spent back into the United States, creating thousands of American jobs as well as revenue for the American economy.
Well, that's no consolation at all.
If
So
I can just say
we're
something real
basically,
quick. Michael, if you want, I'll let you answer. If you guys could pick up your microphones, that actually might help for the sound.
Yeah.
Get a little closer to your mouth.
Sorry.
All right, please continue, Michael. I apologize.
Yeah, that's no consolation at all. I don't want to be robbed. The American taxpayer does not want to be robbed to have Israel buy arms from the United States arms manufacturers, from the military-industrial complex with our money. That is not a good use of our money, and we don't. All the money they spend on American arms is given to them by the United States. So this is just a revolving door. We're looking at them buying our weapons, not ours, but the military-industrial complex's weapons. This benefits the American citizen not one bit. In fact, it's actually extortion. So, and let's talk about some of these technology companies, if we will. Israel is very, very well known for spyware. It is extremely competent with spyware. Let's look at NSO Group's Pegasus, which has been used against Americans in the United States. We had a lawsuit filed by Meta. They charged NSO with attacking users' information on WhatsApp, gaining the access to their accounts, and using that information, targeting particular American citizens, but mostly dissidents, reporters, diplomats, and politicians. So this is what this tech does. I don't want the United States funding Israel's belligerents. I think it's beyond the pale. And there's a difference between Israel and the other countries that we give aid to. And that difference has to do with the fact that it's the most, by far, the most aid of any country. And you look at the other countries that we fund, like Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Afghanistan, and you're looking at another $10+ billion every year to keep Israel safe. Why is Israel the United States, the responsibility of the United States? It is not our responsibility to protect Israel.
Sure. I'd say three quick responses. Number one, you're not really refuting the idea that all the money that Israel is receiving, they're putting it right back into the American economy, which creates more revenue than what Israel actually receives. Number two, you're not refuting the idea that so much of American military technology today is a direct result of Israel R&D. Number three, the argument you're making as it pertains to Pegasus is quite interesting because it's actually an argument that the far left typically do when they try to sue gun manufacturers when a school shooter uses that gun in a school shooting. You can't blame the manufacturer for the use or the improper use by the individual. So too, Pegasus is spyware. The United States government has used Pegasus. They probably used Pegasus just last week to extradite Nicolas Maduro. But creating a bizarre connection between the improper use of individuals using technology is not a great argument. And again, if you're open to the idea of cutting foreign aid, then I agree with you. Let's cut foreign aid across the board. But what you don't mention is that the total budget allocation of the United States government of foreign aid is less than 1% of our entire budget. We spend $7 trillion as a government every single year. We spend way more than we bring in tax revenue. So if you want to focus on foreign conflicts, I know that it's red meat for the base. I know that it plays well on Twitter, but that is not going to solve our debt or deficit. That is not going to solve homelessness. That is not going to solve any of our economic woes because, again, it represents less than 1% of our total budget, and Israel receives roughly a tenth of that 1%.
Well, the United States is $38 trillion in debt.
Let's not yell out, please.
The United States is $38 trillion in debt, and I've just showed you that over 10 trillion of that, or a quarter of the U.S. debt, is attributable to Israel and the funding of Israel.
That is demonstrably not true. First of all, you made the point that Bibi was lobbying for the Iraq war. Bibi Netanyahu wasn't even the prime minister in 2003. Did you know that? It was Ariel Sharon, and Ariel Sharon was adamant that hang on, I'm talking. The Bibi Netanyahu was the ambassador. He spoke about that the real enemy was Iran, and then Ariel Sharon, who was the actual duly elected prime minister of Israel at the time, also told George Bush not to go into Iraq, but instead to focus focus on Iran. The idea that you can somehow attribute $10 trillion of American weaponry through Israel really demonstrates that you don't view any moral or human agency at the hands of American politicians. The American people, we live in a democracy. We vote for our policymakers. If we don't want there to be foreign aid, then guess what? Donald Trump would not have been reelected, but thank God he was.
I think the American public has made it very clear that they don't want to support
Then why was
Israel.
Donald Trump reelected?
And it is very clear that the public is opposed to Israeli aid. That has been told over and over. And secondly, this isn't just about foreign aid, okay? There's more to the subversion, the Zionist subversion of the United States than foreign aid. Take the 38 states that passed anti-BDS legislation. Do you believe in free speech? If so, you must oppose anti-BDS legislation, which curbs individual free speech, association, and prerogative. So there's no way that Israel is simply a recipient of foreign aid. It is much more than that. We have our Congress people flying the Israeli flag in their offices. You don't see this flag of China, Russia, Uzbekistan, or any other country flying flags in the United States. You don't see junkets going over to Israel, 250 state senators sent over to Israel for a conference called 50 States, One Israel. What kind of a nonsense is that? This is the United States, not Israel. Israel's trying to subsume our country into their identity, into their prerogatives, and into their needs. And we are not their sovereign. We are not their patsy. We're not their ATM. We're not their munitions depot. They continuously use our weapons that are stored in Israel, that are used by Israel in the billions without any appropriations by the U.S. Congress and no oversight. And furthermore, the fact is that Israel Tech, it specializes in two things. First of all, they use the Palestinian situation as a sort of testing ground for weaponry that can be used around the world. Then they develop spyware and AI, which is going to be used, has been used in Palestine to slaughter the Palestinians, but it's also going to be used in the U.S. Palantir is being used in Israel. Palantir is coming to America. Palantir is a panopticon. They want to set up a Palantir panopticon of surveillance. And that's what Israel's good for. They're good for creating warfare. They're good for creating spyware, but they're not good for creating any real wealth for the United States of America.
Again, the problem with a lot of your populist rhetoric is it's just not rooted in reality. So when you say Palantir is coming to America, Palantir was originated in America. Its CEO, Alex Karp, is an American. So it's an American company. When you talk about Israel Tech, if you've ever used a flash drive, a USB, if you've ever used Waze, if you've ever used a Camp Hill, you are using Israel Tech. So again, if you want to substantiate the claims that somehow we're being subservient to a foreign country, then make the claim. But the idea that, well, when you walk down Capitol Hill, you see Israeli flags. I was in Capitol Hill last week. You know what other flags I saw? The flags of Morocco, the flags of Qatar, the flags of Ukraine, the flags of Taiwan. In fact, right now, Jason Smith, who's the congressman, he's actually the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. You know what country he's in as we speak? It's Qatar. And by the way, I think that's a good thing, because the only way for members of Congress to learn about issues is to go to those places. And the people who should be going to Israel the most are the ones who hate it the most. And ask Bibi, and ask Herzog, and ask Hollande all of your questions, because how will you possibly understand the region without actually going there? And again, going back to your claims about foreign aid, even if we cut all foreign aid off, A, it doesn't solve any of our budgetary crises, because again, it's less than 1% of our expenditures. And number two, you are not responding to the fact that while it is true there's a partnership, and certainly Israel uses American tech, you totally have not responded to any of the serious American military equipment that we are currently using because of Israeli advances.
Yeah, I'm not really that impressed with the idea that the United States is getting warfare technology from Israel to continue to back Israel's attacks on its neighbors, so that we can drop bombs on Iran unprovoked, that we can stand behind Israel no matter what they do, They bomb Lebanon, and what do we do after they bomb Lebanon? We send aid to Lebanon. We send aid to Lebanon while there's hurricane victims in the United States who can't get funding. This is an outrage. It's an outrage.
Can I interject?
It isn't just the lobby, the 1% of money. We're talking about control. Have you looked at the fact that the United States government has been doing Israel's bidding entirely? Everything they ask for, or demand, I should say, we do, including dropping bombs on Iran. And I believe they're going to do it again. And I also think that the Venezuela hijacking, the kind of abduction that took place there, is connected as well, because they want to have an oil supply in advance of attacking Iran again. So look, this isn't an obsession that I have. It's an obsession that the American political class has. They are obsessed with Israel. They are utterly obsessed. You must look, of course, you're on X, you're on Twitter, you're on the social media. You see that they pay homage to Israel every minute of the day. I mean, look at Ted Cruz, look at Randy Fine, the largest impediment to national sovereignty. When I say largest, of course, I'm speaking metaphorically and also a double entendre. So, look, it isn't just aid. It isn't just, that we get benefits of military and spyware benefits from Israel. We're actually totally controlled by Israel. The political class has paid obeisance to Israel endlessly. I see that almost all the policies, and they're cracking down on our rights. This is where it stops. When you come after Americans' rights of free speech and using the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism in order to throw students out of the United States, in order to take residents of the United States and try to throw them out of the country, to deport them, or put them in jail for simply protesting Israel, you can see that you can't violate anything to do with Israel at all. You'll go to jail if you protest. You saw that, and you actually favor that kind of thing. Supposedly a prominent defender of free speech, you recently tweeted that saying people that said something about, hey, here, we support Hamas or something to that effect, you said they should be deported, okay, for free speech. Nobody should be deported for making a statement like that. They are not terrorists. They simply said they support Hamas. I don't support Hamas, but Benjamin Netanyahu sure did, when he oversaw Qatar's transfer of $1.5 billion to Hamas in suitcases in the amounts of $15,000 to $30,000 at a time. It's unbelievable. So Netanyahu, he propped up Hamas. He made them into what they were. They knew that giving cash to Hamas would obviously lead to them buying arms. So, I mean, look, we've been subverted. That's how I put it. The country's been subverted, and it's, unless you have a particular ideological adhesion to Israel, it's very apparent. But otherwise, I don't know how you get your conclusions, because it's like interface.
So that was a very long ahistorical 5-minute disquisition. So let me start from the end and then
I'm
go
an
to the
historian
beginning.
by
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. So first of all, I encourage all of you, go on my Twitter and you can see the tweet for yourself. Anyone who is an Islamist in this country who chants not just forget about we are Hamas, but death to America or the eradication of Western civilization don't belong in the United States. I'm glad that there's a distinction between you and me. I believe that coming to this country is a right, not a privilege. And if you lie on your visa application like Mahmoud Khalil did, then you get the hell back to Syria and Algeria. For whatever reason, you want him to stay in the country. So that's one of the differences between you and I. It has nothing to do with free speech, and it has everything to do with your ideology. If you are an Islamist from a third world country, don't come to the United States, because we don't want you and we don't need you. That's what this issue is. Hang on, you spoke for like 5 minutes. Give me 30 seconds, man. It has nothing to do with free speech. I actually have been on the record numerous times as saying that the Democratic Party is absolutely wrong to put forth a resolution that condemns Nick Fuentes, because Nick Fuentes has a total right to free speech, and it is a really bad precedent for the United States government to condemn an American citizen for exercising his free speech. However, illegal aliens into this country and third world Islamists who are not American citizens don't have the same rights, and if they violate American law, which so many of these student protesters did, then they absolutely should be kicked out of our country. This is precisely why I voted for our tremendous president, Donald J. Trump. The second thing you said, which again is ahistorical, is when you talk about the subversion, the Israeli subversion of the United States. The only two practical examples you gave is that there are Israeli flags in Capitol Hill, and the second is that we give them foreign aid. These are not substantial arguments
38 states.
That say, I'm about to get there, just don't interrupt. These are not substantial arguments to make that we are somehow being subverted by Zionists if all you can talk about are issues that are objectively not true, like the example of free speech. As it pertains to anti-BDS laws, states for centuries have had not just anti-BDS laws, but they prioritize state priorities when it comes to dealings with Christians or dealing with any international issue, which is why you can find equivalent anti-BDS laws in a number of states not pertaining to Israel, but pertaining to a whole host of countries. Am I in favor of them?
That's not true.
Am I in favor of them? Probably not. But again, all the examples you're using are demonstrably not true, or are examples that you can provide for other countries as well. And then the last point I want to make, and then I'll let you continue, is something bothered me, and I just remembered why when you spoke. You mentioned the International Association of Genocide Scholars as evidence that Israel is conducting a genocide. I don't know if we want to get into the genocide debate, although I'm happy to, but I'm actually a member of the International Association of Genocide Scholars. So is Darth Vader and Yoda, because the only qualification to be part, and this is true, to be part of the International Association of Genocide Scholars is you paid them an annual fee of $38. So if that's the criteria of what is not a genocide, that's not a very good argument. That's an argument of authority, not an argument on the facts on the ground.
We'll start with that. That's one organization out of 183. And that also includes, additionally, 12 Israeli genocide scholars and 9 non-Israeli Jewish genocide scholars. Now, I'm supposing all these people are anti-Semitic and they're casting a blood libel on us. Yeah, they're casting a blood libel on Israel. Look, you can't deny the facts. Now, you want to gaslight us and say it's not happening. We all saw it with our own eyes. And you might say that's bad PR on Israel's part, but you can't there's no PR that can cover for the devastation, for the depredations, for the crimes against humanity that Israel has committed. I mean, looking at this fire here, it reminds me of children burning in houses in the Gaza Strip. This is, but look, here's the thing. The United States has to have a moral principle, and one of them is that we do not enable other countries to commit crimes against humanity. That's got to be a red line in the sand for us. We do not fund countries to commit crimes against humanity.
So then let me respond then to the genocide claim, if this is how we want to take the debate. It's true, the United Nations, the ICC, the ICJ, they have said that Israel's conducting a genocide. I thought you were anti-globalist and we don't listen to those organizations, but I guess we do when it's convenient. Having said that, though, are you familiar with the Tigray War, or is anyone in the audience familiar with the Tigray War? Probably not, because the media never spoke about it. Between November of 2020 and November of 2022, there was a genocide in Ethiopia where 800,000 civilians were killed. No one discusses it. Are any of you familiar with the Syrian civil war from 2011 to 2019? Estimates range from 800,000 to 1 million civilians were killed. The Yemeni civil war, which is currently ongoing, 377,000 civilian deaths. The South Sudan civil war, at least 250,000 civilian deaths. There's actually a Sudanese civil war happening as we speak, and in fact, more civilians were killed in Sudan just last week alone than in the entirety of the Israel-Hamas war. So if you want to, hang on, let me make the point, then I'll let you finish. So if you want to make the point that Israel's conducting a genocide, then you have to clearly explain to me why is it that Israel has actually brought in more aid during the genocide into Gaza than pre-genocide. You're going to have to explain to me why is it exactly that during the so-called genocide, Israel inoculated 700,000 Gazans with the polio vaccine. You're going to have to clearly articulate to me how is it that 25% of Israeli society are Muslim Arabs who also serve in the Israel Defense Forces. And if there is a so-called genocide, then why did Israel wait for October 7th when Hamas brutally invaded a sovereign country took 400 innocent lives at a music festival, took 250 civilians into captivity, including more than a dozen Americans, most of whom they've killed. And if you want to say false flag, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, given that Hamas actually videoed their own atrocities. You can watch the GoPro footage yourself online for free. Just go to hamasatrocities.com.
Yes, that's true. Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th after a stand-down order was apparently given because a soldier in the Golan Battalion testified before the Knesset.
There is no Golan Battalion.
Wait a minute,
You mean
I'm
Golani.
talking. A soldier testified before the Knesset and was told that they received a very unusual order not to go to the border wall. They were told this an hour before the wall was breached. Okay, then they were told not to go to the border wall till after 9 a.m. And then, as we know from Gallant, Yoav Gallant, there was a Hannibal directive that was also issued, and 800 civilians were killed, and we don't know how many of them were actually killed by Israel, by the IDF. But if you look at the damage that was done, if you look at the cars that are burned out, the houses that are bombed, then you see that there was no way that this could happen without the Israeli military. So again, October 7th was a disaster, but it wasn't strictly undertaken by Hamas. There was obviously some sort of massive intelligence failure, which is hard to believe since it has the most sophisticated intelligence apparatuses in the world and the most sophisticated border on Earth, and yet this happened. So, I mean, look, I'm not going to adjudicate the history of the Israel or the Middle East. That's not the real topic here. The topic is just how the United States has been enlisted and to be complicit. Okay, we didn't participate in the other genocides that you mentioned, but we are definitely being extorted to pay for this one. And this one is a genocide. It's not only, these organizations that I mentioned, several organizations, but it's not Human Rights Watch is another. I mean, there's a whole slew of organizations. So it's almost unanimous, unanimous that this happened. But it is never enough for Zionists because they have a way of making reality disappear, gaslighting, using doublespeak, hasbara, and sophistry. That is all they use. And when you come up with facts, they have this wiggle way of getting out of them and saying, well, what about the other genocides? So whataboutism is really very, whataboutism is very prevalent here. I'm opposed to all genocide, and incidentally, I'm opposed to sending any single person to a concentration camp. And yet we have over 300 children in Israeli prisons who are abused daily, okay, by the IDF. In fact, they had a protest for the right to rape, as it's been called, because they used a broomstick to rape a guy in the anus. And this was, you even had Gallant going and defending this. Or was it Ben Gurion? It doesn't matter. They're all the same.
Ben Gurion died 60 years ago, so it wasn't him.
What?
Ben Gurion died 60 years ago.
Yeah,
so
I said Gallant.
Okay, there's also no Golan Brigade, so I assume...
Well, I slipped on that, but
That's time.
I will have some things to say about Ben Gurion.
That's time.
Yeah.
That's time. All right. Take a break. Put your mics down for just a second. Get some water. Are you enjoying it so far? It's a good debate, huh? All right. We're going to get ready to start our next round of it. Before we do, I'm going to take a little privilege here to ask each of you one question. It's not a debate question. In your second round, if you want to get back into it with each other, then you can debate each other, but it's clarification. So, Michael, you're talking about, and I know it's a little off topic, so you brought yourself back, but talking about October 7th, is it your contention that the Israeli government was complicit or even responsible for their own people's deaths by not responding? Is that what you were trying to say?
Look, all I'm saying is the facts. We had soldiers, IDF soldiers, testified under oath in the Knesset that they were told to stand down for several hours, giving plenty of time for Hamas to breach the border. And then we know for a fact, because Gallant actually admitted that they used the Hannibal Directive and killed their own people. So all of that happened. You tell me whether, I'm not going to be dubbed a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy fact person. This is a conspiracy fact. This happened. So you tell me the explanation. It's not really on me because I didn't do it. The Israeli government either was utterly inept, which I'm finding hard to believe because we're told this is the most intelligent people on earth, or they were complicit, and at least some part of the state, some part of the government was complicit. But I don't know. I won't adjudicate that question, but I will tell you the facts. The fact is there was a stand-down order, and the fact is there was the Hannibal Directive used.
All right, thank you. Shabbos, let me ask you, on the discussion of free speech, you were talking about the rights of U.S. citizens, and they do have the right, you said, to criticize. But then you began talking about people who come here who are foreign. So is it your contention that free speech is, number one, not absolute? I think that's pretty clear. But beyond that, is it a right that belongs only to certain people? The Constitution provides it only for certain people in this country, and you have to be a citizen in order to have free speech rights?
The Constitution was written and applicable for American citizens, and any individual who wants to come to the United States as an immigrant, they have to abide not only by American law, but also by our way of life. They have to subscribe to Western civilization. They have to ascribe to a democracy. They have to ascribe to the American way of life. And if they don't ascribe to any of those things, then we should absolutely reject them, because why would we want people who hate America living in America? That's why Dearborn, Michigan is such a fucked up city. And it honestly shocks me, Professor, that you disagree with me on that.
You know, it is not true that...
Well, hold on. Before we get to that, I'll let you answer in the next time. Okay. But we're going to start that next 25 minutes. So let me get you guys on the clock here. And your next 25 minutes begins now.
It is not true that only U.S. citizens have the right of free speech. This has been adjudicated by the Supreme Court. And, in fact, one of the students who was set up for being deported was a resident who had a child who was an actual American citizen. So, and a wife that was an American citizen. It is that the United States, the rights of citizens in the United States are being abrogated. It is not true that any other country has anti-BDS laws. That only pertains to Israel. Israel is the only protected entity here, the only exception that you can't boycott, that you can't even, you know, and in many cases, you can't really even criticize. You saw what happened to these students who were thrown out of the country because they criticized Israel. One of the students merely was one of 4 people that wrote an op-ed in her student newspaper, yet she was abducted by ICE on the sidewalk. An outrage. I don't care whether they're citizens or not. This is not American. This is not the American way. Americans are believers in freedom of speech and freedom of self-determination, which they were engaging in. There was no illegal activity with these people that I'm talking about, these 2 people. And yet they're right, you know, they do have the right of free speech in the United States. We guarantee that to people in the United States, whether they're citizens or not.
So then let me quickly say, first of all, it is a moral perversion to say that the brave men and women of ICE, of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, abduct anyone. They are not. They are federal law enforcement who comply with federal legal orders. So that's a tremendous disservice to ICE, especially in regards to what's happening in Minneapolis. They deserve our support and not our scorn. The second point I want to make is you're referencing Mahmoud Khalil. Mahmoud Khalil is an individual who was part of the Columbia University Apartheid Divestment Coalition, which handed out pamphlets on Columbia University's property in praise of Hamas. He wrote on his own Instagram that he believes in the eradication of Western civilization. He then took part in the Hamilton Hall riots. You can watch all the videos yourself on YouTube, where they took maintenance workers hostage. In fact, one of the maintenance workers, a legal Hispanic immigrant, is actually suing Columbia University over his ordeal, and they sent police officers to the hospital. That is an Islamist that I want out of my country immediately. And again, I don't understand why you don't.
Well, listen, I don't agree with infringing property rights.
Which is what he did.
Okay, I don't agree with infringing property rights. Like Israel does on a constant basis, every day, all the time. I mean, they have stolen land. Now they're trying to destroy the people and get them out of the Gaza Strip and build the Riviera on the Mediterranean.
You're sidestepping the point here. The point here is that we have students on our American campuses and across our country who abhor the United States. We don't want them in this country. Can you and I agree on that?
Listen, I don't think that you can tell me that you should throw a student out of the United States for their opinions.
I'm not. I'm saying
and it's only happening, by the way, you and I both agree on something.
Hang on, let me clarify. You're twisting my argument. At no point did I ever say that you should throw someone out of the country for their opinions. I'm saying you should throw someone out of the country, you ready, for violating the law. And I cannot for the life of me understand why this suddenly became controversial or a conservative talking point or a Zionist talking point. Any third world immigrant who is not a citizen of this country, who wishes the death of the United States and then violates our Constitution should not be afforded the luxury of living in this country. And this is something that I would have assumed unite all of us, but apparently it doesn't, which I find quite shocking.
Wishing something is not a crime, by the way.
You just defended Mahmoud Khalil, and I told you Mahmoud Khalil committed a crime. So can we agree that he should be kicked out of the country?
I don't believe in
yes or no,
violating
should he be
property
kicked out
rights.
of the country?
Pardon?
Mahmoud Khalil, who I just told you committed crimes, he also lied on his visa application. Can we both agree right now that he should be kicked out of the country?
I don't know, because I don't.
That's a major problem.
I don't know what he did. Okay, I know.
I just told you. You could
but
read
I
the
told
court
you about a
documents yourself.
student who wrote an op-ed. One of 4 students. By the way.
And was she kicked out, or is she back in
both
Boston,
of us,
Massachusetts?
Both of us
She's
agree.
in Boston, Massachusetts right now. She was not kicked out of the country.
Both of us agree that what's happened on campuses with woke totalitarianism is an outrage.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
None of those students were thrown out of the country. None of those students were reprimanded. But once they started to criticize Israel, all of a sudden the police were on them. All of a sudden.
Again, okay, let me interject, because I was a student on the campus, and that is demonstrably not true. The Palestine exception has been so perverted. There has only been one entity and one ideological movement on Harvard's campus, on Yale's campus, on Columbia's campus, on Penn's campus, all across the country that had the right to erect homeless shelters in the middle of campus, who had the right to enact their own security campus in the middle of campus. And newsflash, it wasn't the pro-Israel students, it was the pro-Hamas students who chanted day in and day out calls for intifada. They were allowed to do this for weeks on end. And the only time police ever got involved is when, as I keep saying, they violated federal law. You only gave 2 examples of students. One was Mahmoud Khalil, who I already told you violated federal law. And the other student is a woman who I believe was at MIT, or Tufts University, but you can fact check me. And she was not thrown out of the country. She's literally living in Boston, Massachusetts right now.
Yeah, because they tried to throw her out and they couldn't do it.
Correct.
Because the judges overruled.
Correct. Because
the
to
judges
my
overruled
point, we have very strong federal immigration laws. So this whole idea that we're kicking people out of the country if they criticize Israel, as you just demonstrated, is objectively not true.
Well,
otherwise, she wouldn't be living in Boston, Massachusetts.
Yeah, the administration has tried.
So thank you for proving my point.
The administration has tried everything to get these students out of this country.
We're going in circles here. Students who have violated the law, absolutely. And I can show you, because I meet with the Department of Justice and I meet with the Department of Education. I have met with members of Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, who are united that whether your name is Mahmoud Khalil or Jewy Jewstein, if you violate our laws and you abhor the United States of America, get out of this country. Why is this so goddamn controversial?
Because in most cases they weren't violating any laws, and they were still attacked by the police.
Who? Name a student.
In Columbia.
Name a student.
I mean, nameless.
You made a claim.
Nameless students were invaded. Their encampments were invaded, and they were.
Oh, their what? Their what was invaded?
Their encampments.
Encampments?
I agree they were encampments.
So they're encampments, the same encampments that every single president of every single university said went against university law. So what you're telling me, hang on, what you're telling me based on your argument is anyone should be able to go to any college campus in the United States, erect their own homeless shelters, and if the police show up, well, that's just stifling my free speech. That is a crazy mentality.
Yeah, but
what happened to property rights? What happened to no trespassing? I thought this was the United States.
There was newer cases of students who did nothing.
Name a student.
Oh, the student who wrote the op-ed.
You mentioned 2 students, the one who wrote the op-ed and Mahmoud Khalil. We already spoke about those 2. Name a third student of these thousands and thousands of nameless students who are being silenced for their criticism of Israel. Who? Because the only country that is singularly criticized nonstop is the state of Israel. I am so sick and tired of this bizarre BS notion that criticizing Israel is somehow being stifled in the United States. Do any of you have Twitter accounts? Literally the only topic that we only discuss ever. I've been on the Piers Morgan show like 5 times. It is only to discuss us criticizing Israel. Every time I'm on TV, every time I'm talking to Congress, every time I'm doing debates, it's all to talk about criticizing Israel. And by the way, I also criticize Israel. I protested Bibi Netanyahu 4 years ago in Kaplan Square during the judicial reforms. There's not a human being on planet Earth, let alone a Jew, who believes that criticizing Israel should be criminalized. Not only do we not believe that, it's also not legally true. There is not a single law on the book that you can point to that will say that criticizing of Israel will land you a jail sentence.
What about
it's a made-up fiction.
What about the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which makes it illegal for students, particularly, it's only been applied to students who violate the IHRA definition. If they violate the RA definition of anti-Semitism, they're in trouble. They could be.
It's not true.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Because it's now made illegal. They
not true.
And they also cut funding to all these universities who did not obey and were not obsequious enough to the Israeli interests. Okay, those students. Okay, they lost tons of money. For example, one of the UC campuses, one of the Applied Mathematics Institutes, one of the most important applied mathematics institutes, lost its funding because of something that happened on campus with students. That is an outrage. So we have Israel telling us, in effect, through its proxies in the United States, what we can and can't say. And you never addressed the anti-BDS. You said, oh, it's true for everybody. That's whataboutism. They definitely are the only country that is protected by such legislation, and it's in 38 states. That is an infringement of our rights, and it has to end.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm still waiting for you to name a third student. Second of all, I'm so glad you brought up defunding universities. So in 2023, there was a Supreme Court case brought by Asian American students, the Students for Fair Admissions, I believe it was called, and it showed definitively that Harvard University, for example, was ranking Asian Americans based on their personalities. Harvard had so egregiously violated the civil rights of Asian students that affirmative action was actually struck down by the Supreme Court because Harvard had so willingly violated the civil rights law. Hang on, not only that, it gets better. Not only that, during the discovery process that Harvard brought during the Supreme Court trial, it was definitively proven that Harvard University, along with their DEI offices, were actively discriminating against Christian white students, placing them at the bottom of all applicants. And then it was definitively proven by both the Biden Department of Justice and the Trump Department of Justice that Harvard University was not only discriminating against Asian Americans, was not only discriminating against Christian whites, but was also discriminated against Jewish Americans. So your attitude is Harvard University, which by the way has a $59 billion endowment, they have an endowment worth most countries' GDP. Your attitude is they must receive American tax. Hang on, let me make the point, then you can respond. Your attitude is they must receive American taxpayer money. Talk about crony capitalism, talk about elitism. You're telling me that an institution that was definitively proven to have violated the civil rights of Asians, of Jews, and white Christians should receive American taxpayer money, otherwise it's caving to Israel? What nonsense.
What other issue were 3 Ivy League presidents basically canceled for? It was for their lack of treating the so-called anti-Semitism issue.
That's not at all true. I'll tell you why. Of the 3 presidents, one of them, Sally Kornblum of MIT, is still the president of the university. The second president, Claudine Gay, still teaches at Harvard. In fact, she has a $900,000 annual salary from Harvard University, which is way over America. If you're so concerned, by the way, about American taxpayer money going to Israel, you should be really pissed off that American taxpayer money is funding Harvard University, which is paying Claudine Gay, an actual serial plagiarist, which is why she resigned. It had nothing to do with her testimony, is getting paid close to $1 million every year. The other president was Liz McGill of the University of Pennsylvania, who, you know what she does right now? She teaches at Harvard Law School.
You know, Claudia, they never brought anything up about Claudia Gay's
yes, they
plagiarism.
did. There's a New York Post article. There's a New York Post article dating way before their congressional testimony.
It wasn't until Bill Ackman.
That is not true.
It wasn't until Bill Ackman. Can I speak?
No, that's not true.
It's not. It wasn't until Bill Ackman and his Zionist friends, Zionist billionaires.
It all goes back to the Zionists.
It does. It does go back to the Zionists. In this case,
the Zionists made Claudine Gay plagiarize her dissertation 20 years ago.
They never called her out on plagiarism until after the protests and the so-called lack of response to anti-Semitism
all of you
campus.
right now, that is demonstrably not true. You can go on Chris Rufo's Twitter page right now, and he was talking about Claudine Gay's plagiarism well before the December 6th congressional testimony. That is documented in fact.
Yes, but it didn't cause her to get fired from the presidency.
Correct.
She's still in office. She still has a job. I never said she didn't. They took her down from the presidency because she didn't respond adequately to anti-Semitism on campus.
I'm sorry, hang on. Are you saying that's a bad thing?
What?
I just want to understand, even though I disagree with your premise that she was fired because of anti-Semitism, she wasn't. She was fired because she was a serial plagiarist. You're saying she was only fired because she refused to respond to anti-Semitism. You're saying that's a good thing?
I think she should have been fired long before that. That's
Agreed.
a different
Okay,
story.
glad we agree with each other.
That's not why she was fired. And I don't agree with giving all this money to these institutions.
Great. I'm glad you're on my
I actually believe in
team.
cutting it all. But
Good.
it's only cut on this basis. The anti-Semitism, lack of response to anti-Semitism. That shows you differential, partial application of these principles. In other words,
I'm not at all clear what you mean by that, because the Department of Justice found that Harvard University was discriminated against Asian Americans. You have no problem with that. The Department of Justice found that Harvard University was discriminated against white Christians. You had no problem with that. The Department of Justice found that Harvard University was discriminated against Jewish Americans, and all of a sudden that's problematic for you. I'll give you a quick example, because I sued Harvard University for their violations of civil rights. There was a staff member who challenged me to debate him in a secluded underpass as to whether Jews orchestrated 9/11. He then vandalized all of our hostage posters, and then he posted a video of him waving a machete with a picture of my face, saying he wanted to fight. He's coming after me. He's coming after more than blood. To this day, Harvard University has not once responded to me as it pertains to his employment status. So you're saying that's an acceptable conduit? And by the way, that has literally nothing to do with free speech. It has nothing to do with Israel. There was a Jewish student at Harvard Business School who was physically assaulted on campus. You can watch the video for yourself online right now. It has nothing to do with free speech, and it has nothing to do with Israel. The mainstream media and both far left and far right politicians have concocted this bizarre narrative that when Jewish students say that they're being discriminated against, oh, it's because of viewpoint, it's because of Zionism, it's because of Israel. No, it literally isn't. And by the way, if you're so upset, and I don't mean this accusatory, I mean this genuinely, if you're so, shut up, if you're so upset about the way in which Jewish students presumably talk about free speech, then all of you should be horrified that 4 years ago, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expressions, FIRE, ranked 238 American universities as to how well they committed themselves to free speech and the First Amendment. You know what Harvard was ranked out of 238 American universities? 238. They were ranked dead last. This is an institution that demoted a black professor for coming out against Black Lives Matter. This is an institution that disinvited a controversial speaker who was deemed transphobic. This is an institution that unenrolled 12-admitted students when it found out that they were posting racist memes in a private WhatsApp group. But the mainstream media literally did not give a shit. It's only when Jewish students said, hey, there's a bit of a double standard, all of a sudden everyone started to pretend that they cared about free speech. Give me a goddamn break.
Look, I think you're kind of like trying to, well, first of all, I made several points that you've completely ignored, and we should talk about them. For example, because you're just, what you're doing is kind of what they do on the Congress floor to keep a bill from going
You brought
forward.
up the university, so I responded about the university.
This talks
If there's
about
another
the
point,
fact
bring it up and I'll respond.
that we have 500 to 600 charitable organizations who take money from Israel or Jewish or other Israeli supporters, and they do not pay taxes on this money. Of course, this is over $1 billion a year, okay? And they use this money to basically, instead of charity, by the way, the U.S. government has made a rationale for charity. Charity is used for social welfare, and the rationale is that the government will not have to pay for the social welfare if charity is given. But these Israeli affinity organizations, they exploit this charity law, and they use it to lobby our government, and furthermore, to extend the settlements in the West Bank and other issues. So they're funding they're getting tax exemption at the same time as they're actually funneling money to buy our political class, okay? Now you probably say our political class isn't bought off by Israel, and you tell me why AIPAC is so successful. In 98% of the cases, they win because they have money, and the money was coming from a nefarious source in terms of charity. They're charities. They're not real charities, but they're deemed charities, and they get out of tax-exempt status. They funnel this money into these PACs. These PACs buy our politicians to the point where people are actually afraid to run against
Okay, so let me respond. They can make more points. I just want to make sure I address all your points, and then we can keep going. I'll tell you guys a little secret about AIPAC. Not that I work for them, although you probably all think I do when I get $7,000. I wish I got $7,000. The reason why AIPAC is so successful is because they only endorse candidates that they know they're going to win. So, for example, Don Samuels is a pro-Israel candidate who ran against Ilhan Omar. AIPAC knew he would lose, so you know what AIPAC didn't do? They did not endorse Don Samuels. They only endorse candidates that they know they're going to win. This is a secret that not only AIPAC does, literally any successful foreign lobbying group, they do the exact same thing. They will only endorse a candidate if they think they're going to win. In terms of these 500 to 600 charities, I have no idea what you're referring to, but if there's an allegation that they're violating American law, tell me about it, and you have my word. I will go to, hang on, let me make the point.
Yep.
You have my word. I will go to Congress, and I will meet with members of Congress and tell them that there's a violation.
It's against the law, first of all, that the United States...
Hang on. You're the professor. Just let the student talk, and then I promise I will shut up. If you
At least you know your place.
If you are making an allegation about a specific charity, whether it's Israel, whatever country it is, you have my word. If you can pinpoint a specific nonprofit, regardless of its country's allegiances, and a specific law that they are violating, you have my word. I will go to Congress and tell my members of Congress about that law.
Violation.
There
it's
we
an
go.
exploitation of a loophole in the
Please give me
American
30
system.
seconds. I've been so respectful of your time. I just want the reciprocal thing, and then I will shut up. To your point, and I quote, you just said it's not exactly a violation of federal law.
But I will tell you what is. I will tell you what is a violation of federal law, and that is all aid to Israel is illegal. Why?
What?
Because, yes, all aid to Israel is illegal.
You don't have to like
according
foreign
to
aid,
the
but to say it's
Symington
illegal is
and
just not
Glenn
true.
amendments. Any money sent to a non-declared nuclear power is illegal according to the United States law.
Okay. First of all, I'm really stunned that you made an admission that your entire point about there being 500 to 600 pro-Israel charities that are operating outside the law, but then you admitted actually it's not technically a violation of federal law, kind of proves my point. The second point, you don't have to like foreign aid to Israel. And again, I don't think Israel should take American foreign aid, which is why you should actually be the biggest supporter of Bibi Netanyahu, because Bibi Netanyahu gave an interview to The Economist 2 days ago, and you know what he said? He said, we have a plan between now and the next 8 years to completely shut down all American foreign aid. And you know what Lindsey Graham said?
He's been saying this since 1998. It's a total deflection. It's Hasbara. It's nonsense.
Okay,
it's just a lie.
I don't know what you're referring to, because Bibi Netanyahu explicitly stated that he does not want to receive American foreign aid, and in fact,
He's been saying it since 98.
Let me make the point.
let him
And in
answer.
fact, most far-right parties in Israel, not just Likud, but in organizations like Habaita, they've explicitly said that they don't want American foreign aid, because while it is true, Donald Trump has been an excellent president for foreign policy, we dodged a bullet with Kamala Harris. So it's in Israel's own interest to wean themselves off of American foreign aid, which is why Bibi has already put forth a budget that would allocate $110 billion over the next 8 years to build Israeli armaments. Now, for the last point, and then I will let you respond. For the last point, you don't have to like foreign aid, whether it's to Israel, whether it's to Ethiopia, whether it's to Egypt, whether it's to Jordan. But to make the ridiculous argument that money that was allocated and appropriated by the United States Congress for more than 100 years is somehow illegal is not rooted in law.
Yes, it is illegal. If you look up the Symington Amendment and the Glenn Amendment, which state, according to law, a non-declared nuclear power will not get any aid, not only military aid, but any aid from the United States. And I'm sorry, you're interrupting me.
Go ahead.
And that is, in fact, what we've been doing. So all of the aid to Israel is illegal. It's an undeclared nuclear power. It will not be inspected by the IAEA. It will not sign a non-proliferation treaty, and yet it has nuclear weapons that everybody in the world knows about, and we're still giving them money. It's all illegal, every dime.
By the way, you know who also does not allow the IAEA or has signed the non-proliferation treaty? The United States of America.
This is like, I know you think talking fast somehow makes you sound smarter, like, the Ben Shapiro style.
Hang on, don't
but
be a
listen,
dick. Don't be a dick to me. I've been incredibly respectful. You don't have to demean me.
No, this is not personal.
This is
I
just how
can't hear
talk.
what you're saying because you
So you
talk
can ask
so
me to
fast
slow
and
down.
mumble.
You're double my age. Be respectful. Just ask me to slow down. You don't have to be a
Slow
jerk
down
about it. There you
and
go.
stop
Much better.
the Ben Shapiro technique.
Again, when people don't have substantive arguments, then they do, personal attacks. And I really expected something more of a professor. But again, this is why academia is so fucked up.
Now, Listen, that wasn't a personal comment, a personal attack.
Right, it was
If you
just a
think
dumb
that's
comment.
an attack, okay, I'll show you an attack. And you said I should like Benjamin Netanyahu for something. Benjamin Netanyahu is a mass murderer, okay? I don't like Benjamin Netanyahu. No, I wouldn't shake his hand. No, I wouldn't touch my children after shaking his hand either. As Randy Fine said, he wouldn't wash his hands until after he shook Netanyahu's hand, until he touched his children. Obscene. I do no commerce with such people. They're criminals. And he said this since 1998. He's been saying, oh, we're going to cut our dependence on the United States. And on the side, in secret meetings, we hear that he says we have the United States completely under our thumb. We totally control them. He said it in his own words. They completely are under our control. He said the whole Congress is under our control. This has been said for years. And I wanted to get into a few other things. Okay, let's talk about what a great ally Israel is. It's such a great ally that the most damaging form of espionage ever conducted in America by Jonathan Pollard was conducted for Israel. And he gave away 800 documents, classified documents, to his Israeli handlers. And furthermore, the Secretary of Defense at the time said, in fact, it was the most egregious infringement in the history of the United States. That's the kind of ally Israel is. They spy on us. They use backdoor technology to get our information. They surveil on us. All of this is happening. They have access to all the phones in the United States through this company called AMCA or AM something. I'll look it up. But they have access to all phones in the United States through their own technology. So I think that Israel is, if Israel is a friend, we don't need enemies.
Yeah, okay, so the debate started substantive and qualitative, but if you're just going to spew conspiracy theories that the state of Israel has access to all of our phones, what is the evidence of that? Oh, because there's an Israeli spyware. Sure, every country has spyware. To make the assertion that a foreign...
I can't tell what you're saying. Please
To
slow
make
down
the
so I can hear
assertion,
you.
sure, that's a respectful way of asking, thank you. To make the assertion that a foreign country has access to every single cell phone of every single American citizen without providing a single shred of evidence is not a substantive claim, it's a bizarre conspiratorial argument relegated to the dark corners of Twitter. As to your claims that Israel claims that they have control of the United States government, then can you please articulate to me how the JCPOA was passed?
We would like for him to do that, except that's time.
Okay.
So on your closing, perhaps, but we're also going to do a questions from the audience. Maybe it'll come up there. Okay, so what we have now is the closing. By the way, give these guys a round of applause. This is fantastic. Really well done. You have your 5-minute closing, and Michael, you go first. Are you ready?
1 second.
Okay.
My papers got a little mixed up here and trying to
Sure.
root through them and keep up with the speed of which this was conducted. But let me get a second here. All right, listen, I'm just going to say that
Okay, are you ready?
over the last hour,
Okay, go.
I have laid out the case not against the country, but against the corrupt international network that controls our foreign and far too much of our domestic policy. That, of course, is the state of Israel. I've shown you the money trail, that enormous sums of money, not only the $3.8 billion a year, but also the aid given to all of the neighbors in Israel, all for Israel's behest, at Israel's behest to keep them placated in terms of Israel. And, of course, the black budget of the CIA, which totals $13.2 billion a year. This is not a conspiracy theory. These are facts. Okay? And I've shown you the hidden costs of the wars for Israel's behalf. Netanyahu, I don't care if he was the prime minister or not, he came to Congress and told us that if we attacked Iraq, there would be tremendous benefits for the Middle East. There would be peace, and there would be such a great benefit to the United States. Somehow this is our problem, that Israel has all these enemies in the region. It is not our problem. It has nothing to do with us. Okay, we are not tied at the hip. We are tied at the hip. We should not be tied at the hip with Israel. And all of the enemies that we have thanks in the Middle East are thanks to our support, our unbelievable support of Israel no matter what it does. That's why we have enemies in the Middle East. I've shown political coercion from the state houses that punish free speech to the congressmen who fear Zionist opposition more than they fear betraying their own constituents. We've shown you the blatant aggression, the espionage, the genocide in Gaza, the officials who speak of human beings as deserving extermination, and that is their words. The question before the American public is this. It is not a matter of policy tweaks. It is a fundamental choice about who governs America. Is it the American people through their Constitution and their elected representatives, or is it a foreign entity that operates with the collusion of a ruling class, confident that our politicians are bought and paid for? The answer from the Zionist lobby and its apologists is always more of the same. More money, more wars, more censorship, more surveillance. Our answer is simple, and it is the only patriotic answer. No more. No more entangling alliances, as Washington warned against. No more blank checks to Israel. No more American lives and treasure sacrificed for a cause that makes us less safe, less free, and less sovereign. The task at hand is to de-Zionize our government. It is to reclaim American government for Americans. It is a tall order, but it begins with the simple, unwavering demand that we make now. Normal diplomacy, normal trade, zero blank checks, and zero automatic wars. It's time to end the exception that is Israel. Thank you.
All right, you've ended a bit early. Nice job. Shabbos, we'll get you on the clock. Go.
So I would actually agree with the professor that there should be zero blank checks, which again, I find it very bizarre that in a topic that did not include the word Israel, the only country we actually discussed was Israel. I actually believe that we should end all foreign aid, but that includes all foreign aid, not only one obsessive country. You mentioned FARA. Let's talk about FARA, the Foreign Agents Registry Act. The Foreign Agent Registry Act is a law imposed by the United States in order to block the access of Nazi Germans to the United States. Qatar currently has 31 registered FARA agents compared to Israel, which has 15. From 2021 to 2025 alone, Qatari FARA agents logged 627 in-person meetings with members of Congress, which is more than every other country by 300 meetings. So let's talk about AIPAC. I don't support AIPAC, largely because they're pretty ineffective. AIPAC is an organization comprised exclusively of Americans, by Americans, and for Americans. You don't have to like them, but that doesn't mean they're an agent of a foreign country. Just like Indian Americans have UNISPAC, the Armenian Americans have ENCA, Greek Americans have HALC, or the Ukrainian American community, which is the UCCA. Americans are free to lobby as they would like. And if you want to make laws against the lobbying of Americans to their government, then fine, let's discuss the policy and legislation, although unfortunately all we've done is obsess over one country. In 2024, it's true, AIPAC is an American lobbying group, just like the NRA or the Chamber of Commerce. They spent roughly $100 million on lobbying and elections. In the same year, China spent $500 million. Japan spent $400 million. Big Pharma, $400 million. Saudi Arabia, $310 million. Qatar, $250 million. But you wouldn't know this because my esteemed opponent is obsessed with only one country and one country only. But what about the fact that Israel controls American foreign policy? Isn't all of our Congress bought and paid for by Israel? If that's true, that somehow Israel controls American foreign policy, then someone clearly needs to explain to me how is it that President Truman forced the Israelis to stop its advances against the Egyptian army in 1948, which actually would have destroyed the Egyptian army unilaterally. President Eisenhower forced the state of Israel to pull back from the Sinai in 1956. President Johnson refused to greenlight a preemptive strike by Israel against the Egyptians in 1967. President Nixon prevented the IDF from crushing the Egyptian Third Army. President Ford forced the Israelis to withdraw from strategic areas under the Sinai II Agreement. President Carter pressured the Israelis to fully withdraw from Sharm el-Sheikh. President Reagan applied pressure to Israelis to withdraw from Beirut. Of course, President Bush, the senior, forbade the Israelis from responding to Saddam's 1991 Scud missile attack. And a point that you failed to address is if Israel actually controls the United States government, how come that the greatest existential threat to the state of Israel of the last 20 years, the Iranian nuclear deal, JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, of which Bibi Netanyahu, AIPAC, and almost every single Jewish American lobbied their member of Congress against, still passed. So if Israel controls America, they're doing a pretty shitty job. And that brings me to my final point. You had said the only reason America has enemies in the Middle East is because of Israel. Well, that doesn't make any sense because, as I mentioned, the first war the United States ever fought as a country was against Islamists off the coast of Libya, which was more than 140 years before the creation of the State of Israel, which really brings me to my final point. The problem we have in the United States is not something the Jews or something Israel. The problem we have in the United States is the rise of radical Islam. In the last 25 years, I am just going to name just a couple of incidents, so indulge me. Nice, France, radical Muslim terrorist. The 2017 Paris attacks, radical Muslim. The reason TSA checks your shoes in airports, radical Muslim. The underwear bomber, radical Muslim. The New Orleans ISIS attack, radical Muslim. Westminster, Boston Marathon, Manchester Arena, Pan Am bonding, Fort Hood, Beltway sniper attacks, the list goes on. Bali bombing, Mortarville Rigby, USS Cole bombing, London Bridge attack, Madrid train, Charlie Hebdo, San Bernardino, US Marines, Beirut bombing, Little Rock Army shooting, Chattanooga military attack, Pulse nightclub massacre, New York City ISIS truck attack, Boulder, Colorado firebombing attack, DC shooting. Jews who wear kippahs are not going to blow you up on subway stations, but unfortunately radical Islamists will. So let's get serious. There have been more than 58,000 Islamic terrorist attacks in almost every country on planet Earth since 9/11. So while we obsess about the only democracy in the Middle East that comprises less than 9 million people, a quarter of whom are Muslim Arabs, the actual Islamists see the weakness of the West and they're going to take advantage of it. So is there foreign influence in the United States? Absolutely. We have just ganged up on the wrong country.
Nice job. All right, let's give a round of applause for both of these guys. All right, so we are going to do 2 questions. I figured that was going to happen. They said in my ear, they said, if anyone has a question. And I was like, it's not going to be a problem. So, right here, come on up. Here and here, both you guys. And I need one more, right here. Okay, so before you guys ask your questions, I want to remind everyone here and also online right now, you go to wordwardebate.com to vote on this debate. The live results are going to be available for everyone to see later. But again, it's wordwardebate.com, in-house and online, to vote on who won this debate. Sir, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to come from an entirely different angle. Actually, I love both of you guys' points. I'm a little bit on both of you guys' side. I think you guys made a fantastic case. You're freaking fantastic. I love you to death. I love you to death. I think you made great points. I think there's an angle that most people aren't coming from. First of all, I'm going to be honest and say, where I begin is in support of Israel. That's where I stand. That's where I am.
At least there's one person in the room.
That's where I am. That's where I am just by default. So there might be some bias in some sense, but I have a case to make. What was the United States founded on? What religion?
Liberty, equality.
Well, no. We were founded on Christian values. Like every single founding father, all 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, all 56.
Let's just go with what's in the
Constitution.
But it's got to be a question, it's a concise question here.
Okay.
Because it feels like you're
I got a lot to
lecturing.
say here.
Can't lecture him.
Okay. Oh, how do I form this into a question? It's a lot to say. It's good. Trust me.
Right.
So I am from the point where all 56 members of Congress who signed the Declaration of Independence, they were all Christians in some form. They had some form of Christian affiliation. 29 of them had seminary degrees, and they all agreed to the words that said, "We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights." Blah 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 blah. But as a Christian, I'm a Christian. I am a believer that the reason why we are the greatest country on earth is because we are also the greatest ally that Israel has ever had. And the Bible says if we're going to stand as a Christian country who was founded on Christian principles,
So what's the question? I need the question.
Okay, if we're going to stand on that principle, I don't know if I have a question.
Say that Jesus is
all right, can I address what you have
I'll
to
just
say?
finish it this way. I'll just finish it this way.
Yeah.
You guys are basing things off of human standards. I believe we're the greatest country in the world based on the fact that we're a Christian nation and that God blessed us this way because we're the greatest blessing to Israel, and blessed are those who bless them. I'm not the biggest fan of Israel where I can fight against Israel. I could call them out. But what do you have to say to that?
Okay.
Well,
and let's keep the answers pretty concise. Go first.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'll
I
let you both
mean,
answer.
listen, you know, the founding fathers, I look at the documents that they wrote, and in fact, they did point to the Creator, that we were endowed by our Creator with certain rights. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are not, that's where the warrant comes for this, from our Creator. I agree 100%. Now, whether they were all, you know, the founders were Christian, many of them were deists, actually. They were deists.
Yes.
They were not Christians per se. But that's not really
Not
important.
many. I wouldn't say many.
Let me just say this thing about the bless Israel or curse Israel, that whole Zionist psyop that is
It's
the
biblical.
Schofield
Christian.
Bible. The Schofield Bible was funded by Untermeyer with money from the Rothschilds, and in order to create an idea that the Bible somehow inexplicably points to Israel as a nation that we must defend. By the way, in
King
the Bible,
James was
Israel,
King James was a fag.
wait,
That don't mean
Israel
nothing to
is
me.
not-
No.
I
It's
just-
not
okay.
a debate, though. You can't debate it. You're just answering.
Yeah,
Okay?
I mean,
We got
Israel.
the question.
I would argue, and I beg to differ with the idea that the state of Israel, the secular state of Israel, is what is referred to in the Bible. Okay, and there's something. And you're a Christian. Let's go to the Beatitudes, shall we? I think Jesus
I'm not
said.
Catholic.
Wait a minute.
I'm not Catholic.
I don't. The Beatitudes are in the Bible. I don't care if you're Catholic or not.
Okay.
Okay? It says in the Bible, in the Beatitudes,
Beatitudes, sorry,
the
okay,
Sermon on the Mount says,
Okay.
okay, blessed are the peacemakers, not the bomb droppers, the peacemakers.
Yes.
All right, we'll leave that there. That's your answer there. Shabbos, let's get a quick answer here on that.
I'm not a Christian nor a theologian, but what I will say as an Orthodox Jew is America would be a significantly better country if more Christians went to church. America would be a significantly better country if more young people learned and studied the New Testament. And America would be a much better country if more Christians lived a life in accordance with the teachings of Jesus Christ.
Okay, there you go. All right,
I
thank
can't
you, sir.
disagree with
Come on
that.
up. We'll switch out. Yep, thank you. Let's get a real question.
Yep. My question is for the professor. I felt you did a great job, but I was surprised that there's no mention of Israeli criminal networks like Epstein's and Maxwell's.
Oh, yeah.
And the Zionist billionaires like Les Wexner who fund them.
Yeah, well, listen, here's the policy that I came into this with. I anticipated the possibility that I would be called a conspiracy theorist, and that if I brought up the Epstein issue, the Epstein list, the Epstein files, that I would be a conspiracist. Now, I think there's plenty of evidence that points to the fact that Epstein was working for Mossad. And by the way, running, you know, the sex ring and all that, that's only a part of what he did. He negotiated deals with other countries, technology deals, all kinds of things. The guy had, that was kind of a side job for him. The selling of children, American children, in order to bribe the political class of the United States. So yes, and I say in my in our website, on AZAPAC's website, to the United States, from the political standpoint of the United States, Zionism is merely the extortion of the U.S. taxpayer and the bribery and blackmail of our political class for Israel.
Great,
Thank you very much.
Is your question for Shabbos? Or is it?
Yeah, it is. Actually.
Okay, perfect.
I have a very simple question for Shabbos. Who is Amalek?
Who's what?
Who is Amalek?
Oh, Amalek?
Yeah.
Oh.
And do you believe they should be destroyed? Who are they? And do you believe they should be destroyed?
I mean, I'm happy to have a Jewish theological debate, but I don't want to be rude. I'm not sure how much Hebrew you know, but most of the Mefarshim believe that Amalek is more of a concept in the age of Gullus.
Are they people today?
No.
According to Netanyahu, they are. In fact, he referred to the Palestinian people
You don't
as
speak
Amalek.
Hebrew. Hang on. You don't speak Hebrew, so you wouldn't know. I speak Hebrew. You can listen to the video yourself.
I'm telling
He
you what
clearly
Netanyahu
says,
said.
watch the video yourself.
Netanyahu
Hang
said
on, hang
Amalek.
on. Correct.
And he said,
correct.
we
Who-
should treat
who
them
did he
like
say is
we
Amalek?
treat Amalek
Okay,
in the
first of
Bible,
all-
which is to destroy
Okay,
all
hold on,
men,
hold on,
women,
hold on.
children,
all,
and
We can't
animals.
hear. We can't even hear it.
First of all, I'm going to give you all a Hebrew lesson. It's not Amalek, it's Amalek. All right, that's first of all.
I don't care.
Second of all, no, because you just sound stupid when you say it like that.
The
second
pronunciation
way,
is not the
same
issue.
way you said that there's a Golan Brigade. There's no Golan Brigade. It's called Golani. So it'll just make you sound smarter. The second thing is when Bibi said that, he said that Hamas is the equivalent of Amalek. Which, sure, if that's your theological, political justification, go for it. But again, I don't know how much of a theological debate you want to have. But almost all the Mefarshim, certainly in the Gemara as well, say that Amalek in the age of Gullus is not a practical people. No.
So when every Israeli politician says that Amalek must be murdered and destroyed, who are they talking about?
Well, as I just said, when Bibi refers to Hamas, he's comparing them to the Amalek nation in the Bible.
But the thing
Okay.
is that the Bible says, and I do know the Bible in this regard, it says that Amalek, however you
Amalek.
pronounce. Okay, say it again.
Amalek.
Okay, Amalek
Close enough.
should be utterly destroyed. Man, woman, child, and all the animals. Wipe them out. So that's not just Hamas, that's all the Palestinians. That's what he was referring to.
All right. Thank
And
you,
not only
guys.
that, other Israeli officials called for total extermination. Okay, this is not a moral people. This is not a moral nation. This nation is barbaric.
All right. That's the end of that.
Rough.
I know, but they've gone on so long.
Very quick.
Is it quick? Is it quick? Who's it for?
Really quick.
Both?
This guy.
Okay, it's got to be quick.
He's really quick.
All right, go for it. Do it, my man.
Hi there. I do respect you both for being here, even though I disagree with one of you more than the other. Thank you. You stated earlier, as a matter of fact, that Nigeria was committing a genocide against Christians earlier. You stated earlier, as a matter of fact, that Nigeria is committing a genocide against Christians. Do you concede that Israel has committed a genocide against Palestinians?
No. And again, we sort of touched upon it during the...
Well, you got to let him answer. Come on.
Again, I get the thing is like to hate Israel, but you have to listen to the reason why. You have to differentiate between a genocide and a war, right? War, innocent civilians die in every single war ever fought in the history of modern warfare, which is why it's a really bad idea to invade a sovereign country, take its women and civilians, kill its babies, burn down its homes, kill its dogs, right? That's a really bad thing to do. If you believe that there's a genocide, genocide requires intent to destroy the entire population. If that's the case,
In whole
you're going to
or in
have to
parts?
Hang on, let me
It's not.
make,
It's not.
let me make
It's
the
not
point
the
and then you
entire
can
population.
respond. Fair?
You're lying.
Yeah, you got to let
Oh,
him
you're
finish
wrong.
answering the question.
Let me
We
make the
appreciate
point,
question.
and then you can
got
respond.
the question.
Okay, that's
Please
fair.
finish.
If you want to make the point that Israel is committing a genocide, then number one, why have they stopped?
It hasn't.
They haven't.
They haven't really. There are 0 troops currently in Gaza. That's
How
number
many
one. Number two,
Palestinians
you're
have
going-
died
hang on, let me
since
make the
the-
point, then
since
you'll
the
respond.
ceasefire?
Let me make the
Over
point. Let me make
200,
the
I
point.
believe,
Hang on.
right?
You asked me the question, so let me give the answer, and then you can respond.
Well,
That's
hold on,
number
real
one.
quick.
Number two.
Let's not have him respond.
Okay, even better.
Just answer the question. That
Number
way
two,
we-
you're going to have to explain why Israel, during the course of the supposed genocide, inoculated more than 750,000 Gazans against polio with the polio vaccine. Number three, you're going to have to clearly articulate why it is that Hamas, which is the Islamic death cult that runs Gaza, in the last 25 years did not build a single bomb shelter, while at the same time, talking about foreign aid, took billions of dollars, not only in American foreign aid, but in Western foreign aid, to build a terror tunnel network that is actually larger than the London Underground. At some point, you have to recognize that.
Israel
Hang on,
built
don't
those
interrupt.
tunnels.
Don't interrupt. At some point, you have to have a recognition that human beings, Palestinians, Jews, Israelis, all have human agency. They can make choices in life. I really wish that Gazans did not elect Hamas, but unfortunately they did. I really wish Gazans would have created some type of revolt or coup against
Half of
Hamas.
them weren't
but
born
they
when
didn't.
they were elected.
Hang on. There's no point in asking me the question. I'm just going to interrupt every 5 seconds.
You can't keep asking
Or
questions.
filibustering.
I mean, listen.
Hey, I wasn't done with the goddamn
Most of the
answer.
people that the median age in Gaza is 18 years old. Okay, that's the median age. Anybody 18 and younger was not alive when, in fact, there was a vote for Hamas.
So
okay?
can you?
That's number one. Number
hang
two.
on, because you interrupted
you
me.
still haven't.
You interrupted me. So let me say. So hang
Wait,
on
wait.
one second.
Let me just say something. You get 15 seconds to finish your thought.
15?
You
Oh
get
my, what the
15
hell am I
seconds
gonna
to
do in
respond,
15
and then we're
seconds?
turning off the damn mics and we're going upstairs. So
And
go
then
ahead.
hang on, and then I'm giving him a hug because I think we've demonstrated that we can disagree and we can disagree
Oh, you're gonna shake
respectfully.
hands,
Okay, so
absolutely.
that's
Hug.
first of all. Second of all, I want to make the point. Hamas, like people like Mahmoud Deif, Yahweh Sinwar, they have repeatedly stated that they will do October 7th 1,000,000 more times down to the last child if that's what it takes. Can you not, at the very least, condemn the fact that in an elected government of a populace have explicitly, willingly, and deliberately put their political Islamic agenda ahead of the needs of their own populace. Can we condemn that?
So I wonder then why Netanyahu
So no, you can't condemn it.
oversaw
Now it's
the
interesting.
funding
Michael,
of
go.
Hamas and said, in fact, we need Hamas to keep Palestine divided and to point to a reason why we can't negotiate a two-state solution in the region. That is why they funded Hamas. They let Qatar bring suitcases of cash into Gaza and the West Bank to give to, into Gaza to give to the Palestinians, to Hamas, to the tune of 1.5 or 1.8 billion dollars. That's how Hamas got built up. Netanyahu is responsible for their build-up.
All right, gentlemen, great job, great job. Give them a round of
Okay.
applause. And to you guys as well. Yeah, shake hands, go for it. Good job, good job. I wanna encourage everybody, go to wordwardebate.com, vote here, vote online, and now we'll send it upstairs.
Welcome back. Give it up for the debaters. Let them hear. Rectenwald and Shabbos both brought them. Man, went hard at it. Very thankful to be here at the Wiseworth Gold and Silver Analyst Desk. So let's get into it. I'll start with you, Kyla. What do you think?
It's a little tough. I don't know if I have a perfect dog in the race. I think there's this interesting thing, right? We have Shabbos basically saying, come on, Israel's a good ally for America. And then Michael's being like, they're evil. And the issue is, both of these things can be true at the same time. And I'm more interested in, should our allies be evil? Like that, I think that's the synthesis.
Should we
of the
be
conversation.
allies with evil? That's your
right,
question.
but we're we work with Saudi Arabia, and like they kind of suck. We work with Qatar on a lot of things, and they kind of suck. So I don't feel like we got that synthesis, but it was spirited. It was a very interesting debate. I think both sides really came in hard hitting. Yeah, it was great.
All right, what do you think, Gavin?
I'm a Zionist. I love the Jays. I like Michael Rectenwald, and I thought he made great arguments. I actually agreed with both of them. There's nothing more Jewish, by the way, than sitting and debating the meritocracy of Israel. That was the most Jewish thing I ever saw in my life.
That was super Jew.
It was super Jew. That was two Jews Jewing it up.
That was some Jew on Jew action right there. My question to you, Gavin, can you be anti-Zionism and still like Jews?
Yeah, I think they're separate, but if you don't want Israel to exist, you're an anti-Semite. It's like saying I love Italians, but I don't want Italy to exist. So if you are pro-Jew, you're pro-Israel. You can't really separate those two. It's their homeland. And I support it, but I wish that people could understand that within Israel, this debate in Tel Aviv would be a totally normal thing. Both sides going at it like that. Michael Rectenwald could get a job as a reporter in Tel Aviv, saying all the shit he's saying. So people assume that it's this sort of monolithic culture of Judaism, and it's not like that. They hate Netanyahu. They're mad about October 7th.
Is there any part of the debate that you had any issues with? Was there anything that you didn't think was quite as true as maybe it was stated?
Well, the whole concept of Israel being evil is, I think, naive and silly. They're basically in the warriors. They're in a gang, and they're up against these Palestinians who are thugs, who have been attacking them for half a century. And they're not randomly attacking Lebanon or Egypt or other countries around them. They're attacking people who attack them. So the whole concept of Israel being evil annoyed me. And I gotta say, man, this new this tidal wave of anti-Semitism going on right now, it feels to me like it's got some anti-whiteism. It's like I can't crap on any other culture but white culture, and that's Jews, so I'm going to crap on Jews. It's just a feeling I have.
Okay, here's my opinion. And I'm just somebody who doesn't believe in protected classes. I don't think anyone's above criticism or comedy. I would say that a lot of the stuff you're seeing with Jews, you've seen it with Muslims. I mean, especially after 9/11, it's like try to write a joke about Muslims that isn't hack right now. And Christians are still getting lit up by everybody. White people still get up. I just think after October 7th, criticizing Jews is kind of new because you couldn't do it before. If you did it before, you got ran out of society. Now, because of whether you think Twitter is good or bad, you're starting to see that a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think it flourishes because we are okay with shitting on white people, and Jews happen to be white. That's why there's all these rich college kids are so concerned about Gaza, because it's white on brown violence, and we can crap on the white.
But you don't see it as maybe there's one side is heavy-handed on the other side. One side doesn't really have an ability to protect themselves, and the other one is systematically wiping them out.
Fuck Palestine. Fuck Islam.
You're allowed to have that opinion. What's your thought?
I mean, I'm not a big fan of Bibi Netanyahu. I think that like a weapons embargo for what's happening in Palestine, the moment that basically they started saying we are going to vastly limit the amount of food coming in, and the rollout of the food aid situation was horrific. It just was horrific. The calories getting in was, it wasn't enough. I think we should look at that as Americans and go like, what are we asking Netanyahu to do here, right? Netanyahu came out very openly and said that he felt withheld by Biden, that he knew that a weapons embargo would have happened if he had done what he did under Trump in Gaza. And I think when you look at Netanyahu is weirdly enough, a very status quo politician who never wants to lose power. He wants the war to continue for as long as possible so he can maintain his control. But here's what I would say for Israel. I've been there. They've been protesting Netanyahu for like 6 to 8 years.
That's what I want to impart.
Every
nuance.
single Saturday.
There's nuance to that for sure. Yeah. But there are interesting events like the USS Liberty, Michael Shuroff, who's in head of Homeland Security, basically sending all the dancing Israelis home. I mean, those are real questions you have to ask. His father was a Talmud scholar. His mother was basically before Mossad agent who was part of this operation called Operation Magic Carpet, where they smuggled Jews out of Yemen. So, like, there is a discussion to have about what role certain countries have in certain events.
We should just be even-handed about this discussion, right? Like, this is something that Shabbos brought up that I think is a really good point, which is that, like, I actually do not like super PACs, carry committees at all. I want all of it out. I want AIPAC out. I want all of these groups that are interested in foreign investment having these, like, carry committees where they can just have C3s with billions of dollars, not billions, millions of dollars in them that they can just kind of spend wantonly. I think that that's bad for the American progress. The issue is that when we talk about, like, the Jewish question, we fixate on that when it's like Qatar is spending on us and all these other countries are also spending on us. They're investing in our universities, and all of these foreign groups should be analyzed equally. And this is like the anti-Semitic piece, is going, I'm totally okay being critical of Israel. Of course AIPAC is interested in Israel. This is obvious, right? And of course they're trying to bias politicians to be more pro-Israel. The issue is they're not the only ones doing this. And that's the part of the conversation. It's not a whataboutism. It's saying, if you're concerned about foreign money in our politics, be concerned about foreign money in our politics. If you're fixating on just Israel, something else is going on.
The impetus for anti-Semitism right now in the Western world is anti-whiteness. It's anti-Western. And they always say, like, from the river to the sea, they talk about how we need to annihilate Israel. And then they go, we need to end Australia. We need to end America. They hate the West, and they see Israel as the most successful Western country.
But we did murk 2 million Iraqis based on the idea of 9/11.
They got good reasons
to hate the West. We did murk that. We did do great damage to Afghanistan.
Why are we bringing that up?
Well, because it's this notion that there's this kind of like focus on Israel or Jews when we've literally committed a genocide against Iraqis. Like 2 million people. That's a lot of people that have died in a lie that they had nothing to do with.
That's war. You know, you kick Mike Tyson in the balls and you get knocked out.
Yeah, but Iraq had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, well, they knocked the wrong guy out.
But they didn't knock anybody out. That's my point of view. It's like we really did something. So this whole notion that like one group is being picked on more than other, I think everyone's getting picked on. It's very unusual to see right now because we're of the same age that you couldn't do that before. You would be ran out. Now that it's everywhere, equally. I mean, like, dude, if I go Catholics or pedophiles, no one gets upset about that. No one does. No one. It's just, oh my God, those kitty, you know. It's just to me, I think it's more I think it's like even-handed more than ever.
So I actually think that it's good that there's more openness to being critical of Israel. I think that that's a good thing, right? I don't love the form that it's taking, and I think that a lot of people have lost some nuance as to why people are so vehemently concerned about anti-Semitism, right? When you look at like the Yemenis, Israeli Jewish people that were being smuggled out, which I think mostly were Arab Jews, right? Why? Well, that's because of a diaspora. They were spread out from their land, and they were persecuted in every land, and then told that they don't get to continue to live in Yemen. They had to move to Israel, right? And so when we're talking about anti-Semitism, it has to be loaded in the front of saying, we must criticize Israel. We must look at the Palestinian situation and go, you guys aren't finding a good solution here. There's no good guys that's going on here.
Going back to his point, is there an anti-Christian movement in Hollywood and the media, and is there an anti-white? And if there is, I mean, like, to sit there and say there's not an anti-Muslim movement since 9/11 is just kind of crazy to me.
I agree.
But I mean, there's anti-Christians. I mean, dude,
I
Hollywood.
wish there was an anti-Muslim movement. We just got a Muslim mayor in New York City. I think if you smoke a joint and have a bath and then look at yourself in the mirror, you'll realize that a huge part of the popularity of anti-Semitism is white ethno-masochism. Now, everything Rectenwald said I support, by the way. Like, I can think you can be a Zionist and support Rectenwald. But there's something about this. The encampments at Columbia, the tents at Columbia, that wasn't about Israel. That was about white people. Fuck white people. I hate white people. That's really what it was about. And that's what fuels it. And that's why they don't talk about any brown on brown violence in
well, that's definitely that's a part of the cultural Marxist movement that's going on in the country, which is to basically cause gender wars between men and women, cause racial wars.
Yeah,
empower.
but we've been doing this forever, right? Like, gender war has been going on since like the 1890s, and the only reason that it wasn't happening before is because like women didn't have a capacity to like argue about it. Like, the reality is that like there is growing Islamophobia, there's growing anti-Semitism, there's growing everything, energy, political violence.
Islamophobia is
on the
justified, and sexism is justified.
No.
Women should be in the kitchen. They should be making
I
sandwiches.
disagree with all of that, obviously, right? Like, Mamdani won despite the fact that everyone insisted that he was a jihadist that wanted to destroy New York.
He is.
That's not. No, it's not
He is
true.
doing crazy
He's a
stuff.
jihadist.
No, he's not. He's like a beloved mayor. Give him
He's
his chance
a
to shine.
retarded rich kid who can't stop
Who
grinning.
ran the best PR campaign New York has seen in decades.
Oh my! Are you out of your mind?
No, I'm not.
What?
I have the winner of the debate, and I'm somewhat shocked. The winner today is, it was very close, Shabbos, everybody.
Makes sense. I mean, he was faster on his feet. He knew the facts better. I'm not surprised. He performed better.
They were both
even if
great.
you disagree with him.
They were both right.
It was a crazy thing. I think Shabbos did a great time. There's things that he said I didn't necessarily agree with. He did slip and call AIPAC a foreign lobbying group. At some point, he did say that. And, to be like, well, we gave you all this. The argument about guns and Pegasus is laughable to me.
Which part?
Well, a gun was created to hunt and to protect your family. Pegasus was specifically made to spy. It wasn't made to help kids learn or, teach grandma how to cook or whatever example we might want to do. It was specifically made by Robert Maxwell, and they basically convinced everybody to put them on their phones for the simple case of spying. I mean, it's just the truth.
Do we not need spying in America? Like,
do we need people spying on America? That's the question.
Well, they're going to. So America might as well have technology to spy back. But if you want to say
it's
warfare
not
bad,
used for
I agree.
America to spy. It's used for Mossad and Israel to spy.
For who?
Mossad and Israel.
America. That's who the intelligence goes back to.
I don't see it that way at all. I mean, and again, I don't think, I'm not an anti-Jew guy. I don't think Jews are the top of the food chain. I think it all comes down to Babylon. I mean, before you guys think I'm crazy, if you take the map of the Greater Israel Project and you take the map of ancient Babylon, it's literally the same thing. It's literally the same exact map. It's like, I'm telling you, there's levels to this shit. If you're fighting over Muslim, Christian, all that, I think you're losing the fight. Fight over men and women, race, I think you're losing the fight. It's dark arts. What are your thoughts on the win? What are your thoughts final on all that?
Great. That's what this is all about. I think a good debate is when one guy makes his points and you go, yeah, I agree with you. And then the next guy makes his points and you go, yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think these two people are a lot closer than they would want to concede, which is why they hugged at the end.
Yeah, thank God they hugged. I thought that was getting a little crazy. The questions from the crowd. You had some problems with leather jackets. Do you want to get into what happened with that?
I don't think. I just came up with this tonight, but I don't think grown men should wear leather jackets.
Who should wear leather jackets?
Bad boys.
Yeah.
19-year-old bad boys who smoke cigarettes.
Okay. All right, I respect
And then when
that.
they turn 24, they got to give it up.
But you're okay with leather jackets.
I got a soft spot for leather jackets.
Does it have to come with a
No,
motorcycle?
you're wrong.
Huh?
Does it have to come with a motorcycle?
I grew up in cowboy country. I don't want a motorbike. I want a horse and a cow.
Listen,
It's a stupid fabric.
a cow had to die.
It's too thick.
Well, there's faux leather now.
Like, if you're riding a motorcycle, I agree. But, like, why are you wearing, like, a big, thick...
I
tarp?
think he looked great.
It's a tarp.
I think he looked great. I mean, there's other weirder outfits that men can wear. I'm not really into the man bun at all. But, what I used to have long
Don't
hair.
wear leather jackets.
Just at the end of the day, that's it. So, guys, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to take a break here. It's going to be about 45-minute break to get ready for the main event. Anna Kasparian, Pearl Davis. It's going to be lights out chaos. So, and if you're here in the arena, please come join us for a drink upstairs. We're all going to hang out, get drunk, start swinging on each other. It's going to be great. And thank you guys for making Word War Debate so amazing. One more to go. We'll see you in a few.